Right, the conversation I'm going to turn to now concerns, of course, Perry's old club and Theo Walcott, with Theo Walcott and Arsenal announcing in the last half an hour that there will be no transfer of Theo Walcott, certainly in this window, and they've come to some short-term agreement. What do you make of the whole issue of Theo Walcott leaving Arsenal?
Well, as an Arsenal fan, if you said you had Van Persie's song on Theo Walcott, and what one would you be happy to lose, I'd say Theo Walcott. If you got £15 million for him, they bought him for £5 million. The thing with Theo is, I still don't think that he's realised his potential. But how long can you have potential for? He's been at Arsenal for 5 years now. He's coming up to 23. He probably had his best season last year in terms of assists and goals. And halfway through the season, he looked like he had a decent relationship with Robin Van Persie. But he's just too inconsistent.
Well, let's have a look at his stats and see how they bear up. I mean, I'm just looking at this is his record since he's been at Arsenal, and he's been there quite a few years now. He's played a lot of games. Sometimes people think that he doesn't play very many games, but he has played a lot of games. And I suppose, 6, 4, 7 goals, 13, 11. It's kind of getting there, isn't it? But maybe it's not as much as you'd expect.
See, those games, a lot of those games would have been coming on as a substitute as well, because he hasn't been a regular, because his performances haven't been consistent. To be fair to him, he's looked better when Arsene plays the 4-2-3-1. He looks better when he plays in the 3 on the right. He doesn't look as effective when he plays wide right, because he relies on his pace. He plays off of instinct. And the reason I think that the board might be thinking if we get a decent bid in for him, we'll let him go, is because of the emergence of Oxlade-Chamberlain. Oxlade-Chamberlain is actually a better player than Theo now.
But is he not more a left-sided player?
No, he can play left, he can play right. He'll end up playing as a centre midfield player because he's that good and he's that strong and his vision's very, very good. So they're probably looking at it thinking, well, actually, we've got Gervinho, we've got Oxlade-Chamberlain. Do we need Theo Walcott?
Who's the young boy in the reserves coming through? He's 17, I think. He plays on the right-hand side of midfield. Is it Dagna? Something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, he's apparently a really good find.
Out of curiosity, has anyone ever thought of playing Walcott in another position? Perhaps as a centre forward?
He wants to play as a centre forward, but I don't think, because Arsenal
because his crossing is not that great.
No, he's got better, but you'd expect his final decision making and his final ball to be better when you've been at Arsenal for 5 years. So
yes, it requires a certain amount of...
He did an interview with the London Evening Standard, the local paper here in London, in which he said, I don't want to push the point. He said, but I feel I'm a better striker rather than a wide player. I'm learning to be a winger. He said, I like to play off a big man.
That's not going to happen at Arsenal, because he plays with one up front. And when you're playing with one up front, the reason Van Persie had a brilliant season last year because of his goals, but his technique is very good. And when the ball's going into him, he can hold the ball up. When Van Persie, he can lay people in. So that's why I think he's bought Giroud and Podolski, because they're physically a little bit stronger. And I'm not sure if Theo played up front on his own, that whether he'd be able to hold the ball.
What about playing him off Giroud, though? Because Giroud is quite a big player who is capable of holding the ball up.
Arsene he isn't very flexible with his tactics, so he will stick at the 4-2-3-1. So
even if it means that he's wasting the potential of this young boy, who pretty much, barring his pace, doesn't have that much to offer on the playing on the wings.
If you've been at Arsenal for 5 years, then you should have more to offer than just your pace.
But for what we've heard tonight, does it sound to you both as if they're paving the way for a move, maybe in January or next summer?
Yeah, it's just very strange because...
Because he's out of contract, isn't he?
He can walk on a free in the summer. And it just seems like, again, there's a father-son relationship with Theo and Arsene Wenger, because Arsene's been very patient with him. The crowd have been brilliant because he hasn't delivered as quick as what they'd hoped, but Arsenal fans can get on players' backs, and they didn't. I think because he's a very well-mannered lad. He's very well brought up. He's got good morals and
you can see the potential sometimes.
So the Arsenal fans have sort of bought into that, because there's a real sort of willingness for him to do well, which is very unusual in the modern day game. If you go there and you don't play very well to start off with, the fans get.
But he must have thought, as soon as Van Persie started making all those noises about leaving, he must have thought, right, here's my chance to show everyone what I can do in the middle. And then he sees 2 other players bought in ahead of him.
Well, that would tell you what Arsene Wenger felt about playing Theo Walcott through the middle, because if he really fancied chances, you go and buy one, because you think, actually, I've got Theo who can play there. What he might have said to him when he sat down is, look, we've got to coming up to January. I'm going to give you a run of games. He might play him. Mina might be right. He might play him as a centre forward in things like the Carling Cup or the FA Cup or even the
or
lesser...
off Gilles, just,
or,
just off
in the
a big
lesser,
target.
Premier League games. But I think he wants £75,000 a week on a 5-year contract. On this one, I'd agree with the Arsenal board. I think that is a fair wage for how he's performed. I didn't agree with him with letting Son go because he wanted to stay, so they should have put him on the highest wage that they had at the club because you can't let your best players keep going.
There's no alternative to Son.
Arsenal haven't got another player who plays like he does. So, but with this one, I can understand the Arsenal board's direction, but it just seems strange that the Arsenal board have got one feeling on it and Arsene Wenger has another. Normally, there's not this discrepancy that comes out between the two. So that's just a strange thing coming out. That never normally happens.